Okay, so you're ready? Good. Welcome once again to Coffee and Conversations. I'm your host, Dustin Box.
We're already having a good time.
This is Pastor Jamie.
Good morning.
And Pastor Tim Arroyo. As you can see, our crew has grown now with our special guest, Tim.
Yes.
Special guest.
The specialist guest you've ever had on here. The only guest you've ever
had a guest.
Oh, man. Okay. So here's the thing. After worship, when this comes out, it'll be a week later. Mm-hmm. We had a debrief after our worship set. We were singing the song Our Father, right?
Yes.
And there's that like, yours is the kingdom, yours is the power, yours is the glory forever and amen. And there's like that moment we sort of hit, and you shared sort of that prophetic encounter about the angel and just sort of like this thing about God's nature. And we were in our debrief, and he shared that, and I got so stirred with sort of the climate of where everything is at. I just was like, we've got to have a conversation about this and talk about it, because I feel like there needs to be, I feel like there's a lot of people talk about it on Facebook all the time and social media, but there's a bit of like a split in terms of opinions and sort of division in a lot of, you know, our thought and a lot of actions and stuff. And even the message that you sort of wrapping up Keep Your Love On was exactly on that same topic. Mm-hmm. And so there was like this thing of, I feel like corporately we need to have a discussion about this and sort of like realign ourselves and sort of redeclare vision, purpose, what are we doing, who God is in this time and season. Yeah. That makes sense. So I don't know if you want to share what that was. And
love to.
Yeah.
So for 2 or 3 weeks leading worship, I have been having these moments in practice while we're leading where I literally feel like the presence of a person around me. And like, you guys know, I'm just a weird person and I have a very active imagination. So I'm apt to ignore those types of things when they happen to me, because it would be a never ending, it just never ends. And like literally, there's even Olivia's in the room right now. She's one of our camera people. There were moments where I would flip around thinking Olivia was behind me, because I just felt like somebody was behind me. And this past Sunday, we were leading. I had the same feeling again, but this time it was in front of me. And I just decided, maybe this is the Lord. Let me just lean into it and see if, just ask him to like, show me what you're doing, Lord. Mm-hmm. And I just saw an angel so clear as I could see anything. And he had a sword pointed out, and there wasn't a sense of fear or anything, because I knew it wasn't pointed at me. But that sword to me represented something to do with his assignment. And so when I asked the Lord, like, Lord, what's this all about? I just got overwhelmed, because I heard him say like, this angel is like almost like wanting to be sent out through the sound of worship, through the sound of prayer, to defend the reputation of God in the season. Mm-hmm. And it just all hit me in that moment where we may not even realize it, but just the very nature of us being in a global pandemic, seeing really hard things happening all over the world. Yeah. Nobody's been untouched by what we're experiencing. Not a single person on the entire planet. That even on a subconscious level, for some of us a conscious level, it has the ability to possibly challenge what we believe about God. Mm-hmm. Whether it's his healing or that he really is a protector, provider, all this stuff. And I could just feel the desire of the Lord. He's not, I know he's not, what's the word?
Insecure?
Insecure, thank you.
Yeah. We actually didn't talk about that beforehand. That was just awesome.
Yeah, that's great. I know he's not insecure. He's not worried about his ego. He's fighting for his church, really. Yeah. It's more about his church not losing connection with who he has always been. Mm-hmm. And I as clear as day, when we just started to declare his nature, who he is. You should go back and watch it, because it was a really special moment. I could just see the thing just get released, and I literally, it's like he went away. Mm-hmm. I feel like the assignment lifted, just to see the revelation of the person of God. And so I love that we're talking about this, and I think it's so sweet to actually have conversations around the prophetic, around what God is supernaturally revealing to the church, because at a certain point, the rubber's going to meet the road for all of us, and we got to decide, okay, what do we do now with our whole worldview, our view of God being challenged by this pandemic?
Yeah. It's interesting too, because some of the perspectives, like when you say everyone has been touched or affected by it, it's not necessarily that someone that has had COVID or has passed away from coronavirus or whatever. It's the implications of the stay-at-home orders, the quarantines.
Right.
The whole picture is affecting everyone in differing ways.
Yeah.
And I know my social media feeds are pretty divided right now.
Right.
And the comments that are getting made back and forth and stuff is like, there are some conversations where I'm like, this does not reflect well upon who God is. You know what I mean?
Right.
Regardless of people's opinion and stuff. And so it's like, I think one, how are we recognizing if we're sort of like disengaged from who God is? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, how do we recognize that in our own life?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because if that is like, if that's what's happening, there's this sense of like the reputation of God. Like, how do we know, oh wow, I'm off on my perspective, I'm off on my response, versus I'm standing up for what I believe. It's a conspiracy, or you guys are all crazy conspiracy theorists. You better like stay at home, and like the arguments back and forth.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? How do you know like where like you're on okay ground and like what you're saying and what you're approaching?
Right. Are you asking me?
Anyone,
for it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Just because it's a tough question. I don't know. Like I
mean,
find myself on both sides all the time.
I think everybody's different. For me, gosh, I feel like it's such a loaded question. When it comes to just opinions about what's right and wrong and kind of the natural elements of how we approach this pandemic, I feel like I'm not even going to speak to that, just because there's just so much happening, and there's a good chance that God is actually telling different people to do different things and how to approach the season. So that's hard for me to speak to. But when it comes to like, how do we know when we're disconnecting from the nature of God?
Yeah.
How do we know when we're leaving a high belief of the person of Jesus? I know it because like when my joy and my peace, my optimism starts to go down, that's how I know I've lost connection with who God really is.
Yeah.
Because heaven is eternally optimistic, eternally peaceful. Like, God is the embodiment of all those things. When I'm like even now I'm like asking the question myself, like, what would I feel, what would I think if I had the idea to actually lay hands on somebody right now that I thought was sick? Would I be filled with fear because it might be COVID? Or would I actually have the same sense of excitement to see God move miraculously that I had before this pandemic?
Yeah.
You know, so those are kind of like the questions that I've been asking myself, you know, like even how I treat my family. Like if I'm like not being awesome, if I'm like not connected and engaged because the routine is killing me, then I've lost some side of the nature of God, because there's just no routine in a life that's connected to Him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Consistency. He never changes, but it never has this sense of drudgery. And you know what I mean? I don't know if that answers your question,
No,
but
that's actually really good. I think just like as you're kind of like sharing that, it's like the difference between sort of like a pessimistic or an optimistic attitude. It's not that so much. And it's not like a burying your head in the sand,
right,
just waiting for everything to go away or hoping nothing bad happens. It's being so connected to God's heart, that like you see His nature and His heart in what's happening, and what His response would be, or like what He, you know what I mean, like how He would respond in that situation, versus and so like in that perspective there is hope.
So good.
If you're faced with like really like your business is about to go bankrupt, like I have several friends right now that one of the discussions I just was looking at, like they are like faced like, hey, do we defy our stay-at-home orders and reopen our business, or do we go bankrupt? Like literally, and their landlord just raised their rent. Like in the midst of this, they get a notice saying that this coming month their rent for their business is going up. What? And this is in California, where they've had some of the longest, you know what I mean? So he's basically like, wow, we got to come up with a plan. We got to do something, you know? So in those are some of the things where it's like, okay, if I'm tapped into God's nature, then there is like, He's going to make a way of escape. Like there is a response. There's an answer to that. I need to stay connected to Him so that I can see the response when it comes up. I can see the opening, if that makes sense.
Agree.
You know?
And I think we need to be connected to the pain that's happening around us, not consumed by it. But I think of a song lyric that says, we pray with our eyes open. You know, like I don't need the world to be doing really good for my view of God to be really good.
Yeah.
You know?
Hey, can I add, I think the question is like, there's so much going on. It feels like a lot of it's out of our control, right?
Right.
And so we've totally been taken out of our element. And so all the places we're used to seeing God, we're not seeing him there.
Right.
We're having to find God fresh right now. We're having to look at things in a really fresh way, and our minds are being conditioned by this moment, right? I mean, like, you posted stuff of us all worshiping together, like, in the past.
I got so many responses, like, what is that?
Yeah, you posted, like, some selfies that you took way in the past of the whole church behind you going, I can't wait for this again. And I saw it, and I immediately went, like, just immediately, like, that makes me feel uncomfortable.
And nobody wants to get back in church more than you.
Exactly.
In the entire world.
It was literally like, I'm uncomfortable. I hate that I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I watched TV. Shows that we recorded a long time ago are now being aired right now. And I'm like, they're all walking out in public. What the heck?
Yeah.
And so there's definitely like a conditioning going on, right?
Yeah.
Like,
so true.
There's that. So I was going to say this. So we bought starter seats for our raised beds, right?
Starters. I thought you said starter seats. I was like, what game are you going to? Like, what?
I'm buying season tickets.
To the next Celtics
They're
game.
really cheap right now. No. I bought starter seat beds, right?
Okay.
And so it comes with all these instructions, comes with little pellets, you pour water, it creates the soil, you put the seed in, and it like, stuff that's supposed to take like 7 days to germinate, it was like full stem, like in 3 days. It was crazy, it grew super fast, like insanely fast. Wow. But I was reading the instructions and it said, okay, plant these seeds, water them, put this cover on it that kind of condensates the soil and keeps it really moist, and they were growing immediately. But then the last instruction is saying, don't plant them immediately. Bring them outside for a minute, let them get some sunlight, and then bring them back in. Let them stay out a little bit longer the next day and get them used to the sunlight. My point is this, that if we were to take those plants and aggressively put them in the environment, that they would not survive. My point is this, sometimes is that we need to work through the elements of opposition to fortify our beliefs and our root system, right?
Yeah.
So right now in this moment, a lot of things are being challenged. A lot of our beliefs about God are being challenged. God is a healer. Well, he was a healer on Sunday morning when Pastor Jamie called an altar call and called the ministry team forward to heal the sick. God's a healer. We go to Salem and we do healing signs. God's a healer, right? So we have these conditions that we grow really well in. You take it out of those conditions and you put it in opposition, and then you go, is the root system still fortified? Is it still strong? Do you still believe it when you don't see it in the environment that you're used to? So the question now is that what is God doing in this moment of opposition and difficulty and struggle, where it feels like his nature is being contended against and his, all that kind of stuff? My point is this, is that there's never been a better time to strengthen our root system, that he is who he said that he is, no matter which condition that I'm living in, no matter where I go, that God doesn't change. I am the same yesterday, today, and forever, that my values are unchanging. And not only that, to potentially discover parts of his nature that you never could have experienced in the safety net of the way you were planted before. Like maybe you knew he was a healer, he was a provider, I got a good job, I got overtime hours this week, woo, God's a provider. Now you have no job, and so maybe you're going, oh, I know that God's been a provider. Now you're going to find out that God is faithful. Right, and so you're about to discover something completely different that you never would have experienced within the environment that you once lived in. Now you're going to understand parts that, I go to Africa and India, they know parts of God that I've never met before. Because they're in environments I've never lived in. So you take me out of my comfort zone of my environment, you put me into a new environment, and now I might discover a God I've never known. This could be the greatest moment of revelation.
It's so good. I think what makes me excited about that is this invitation to know God at a deeper level.
Right.
As long as we're not using our circumstances as like an accusation against him.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I lost my job. You see, you're not a provider. And God's like, what do you mean I'm not a provider? Like, your job, like, was your job the provision, or am I your provision? This sort of
challenge it.
Yes, exactly. And so, like, not allowing your circumstances to be sort of like this, like, almost like a court case against God in a way. You know what I mean? Where it's like, that's like the one side. The other side is like what you're saying, where it's an invitation of like, all right, God, what are you doing right now?
Right.
Like, you're still a provider, so how?
Right.
Where's the faithfulness? Let me get to know you in this way.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it draws you in.
I think that one of the challenges for believers right now, right, is that, okay, so we need to fortify our beliefs about God. We need to find this resolve that is now unshakable because of the season of us being exposed to elements we've never been exposed to. Now, the scandal of the new covenant, the scandal of the kingdom, is that God shares his reputation with his sons and daughters. Christ in you is the hope that God will receive glory, right? So God actually looks and goes, I'm going to call you my child. Well, you are the son of God. You are, the son of David. You are, like God saying, you're my son, but I'm going to call you the son of David. He's like, I'm going to share my reputation with somebody. God shares his reputation with us. Christ in you is the hope that God receives glory. Now, we actually have an opportunity right now to reveal the nature of God to a people who've never encountered him. By the way we respond. And this is now the responsibility is that we can truly understand that if we want to know a God who's faithful, we're going to be faithful. If we want to know a God who is unifying and love and like reaches out, we've got to be those that are unifying, love, reach out. We want to know a God who is a healer. We need to heal. We need to get our hands dirty. We want our communities to know a God who takes care of the poor and sees people in their need. We need to take care of the poor, and this is God's divine opportunity for the church to actually represent the God that we know. Christ in you is the hope that he'll receive glory. He shares his reputation. So if his reputation is under attack, it is directly, I'm going to say something crazy, it can be directly connected to the incompetence of believers that know how to reveal him.
That's scary. I mean, but that's the reality.
What a God, though. What a God that would even choose to set up his kingdom in that way.
It's sort of, it adds like an added weight to the whole, like, the hands and feet of Christ. Like that.
You're the fragrance of Christ dispensing revelation of the person of Jesus. That's crazy. That's crazy. And it makes me think of social media, and it makes me think of Bob Jones, who said, if you're going to error...
Okay, wait a second.
Okay, let him...
Just wait.
Okay.
Flowing, bro. Bring it together. Bring it together.
Bob Jones said, speaking of people who are prophetic people, if you're going to make a mistake, if you're going to error, like, do I give this harsh criticism or am I more lenient? He said, if you're going to err on the side of love. So if people are wondering, like, should I post this? Should I not? Like, people really need to hear what I have to say. People really need to see this article and hear my opinions about what they're doing. Like, if you're going to, like, lean one way or another in how you represent yourself, which is, if you're a believer, how you represent Jesus, then if we're going to make mistakes, let's make mistakes. Say, you know what? I went through COVID-19 on social media, and I was just way too lenient. And I was way too loving. I was way too generous. I should have been more firm. I would rather say that on the other side of this season than like, man, I said too much. There's a lot of proverbs about talking too much, not many about not talking enough. So how do you, sort of in response to that, there's like a bunch of verses right now that are like fired in my brain, like Jesus' final prayer, like that they would be one.
As I, you know what I mean? As I'm one with you, and like they're gonna know who I am because of their love for each other. So how do you respond then to people that lift up the card of love looks like speaking truth? You know what I mean? And if people are gonna get offended by that, well then that's their deal.
With the word of God. Love is patient. Love is kind. It rejoices in the truth, but it doesn't demand that everybody else follows their version of it.
Dude, keep preaching on that one.
Right. I think there's the other one that pops in my head.
That's intense, actually.
I can't tell you how many times I've written a status and deleted it. Right? And the reason why I've written it and deleted it is because in Corinthians, Paul says, everything is lawful for me, but not everything is beneficial.
So good.
Everything is legal, but not everything. I will be a slave to nothing, right? And so sometimes I take that more than just sin. Like I look at my life and I go, I am entitled to my opinion, but my opinion is not beneficial.
Boom. I do that all the time.
You know what I mean? And I go,
I should do that a lot more. Dang it.
Right? Like I'm entitled to my opinion, but my opinion is not beneficial. I'm entitled to it, but it won't necessarily build the kingdom. Like I'm trying to figure out, if I post this, do I bring fame to Jesus or do I enact war on my brothers?
So good, man.
And I go, not beneficial. Like it literally will do nothing in eternity. That I'm stating my opinion right now, and I've made that. I've not had that mindset and posted, and then like I'm like, I'll delete it tomorrow. Like I've made that mistake before, but I think it's really important for us to kind of process the power of our decision making.
That's really good. Jeez. Okay, so one last question, sort of in all of this, even earlier when I was just sort of thinking about it. One of the dilemmas maybe, or how do we respond sort of in this season right now, is this idea of like, I feel like there's a lot of people that, myself included at times, where I'm trying to err on the side of loving, you know what I mean? Like not being too aggressive or mean or misrepresenting Jesus in my posts or in my communication with people. But there's been moments where I've noticed my own life be like taking sort of a passivity, like, or a passive approach to the situation, and sort of letting the media, letting the government sort of set the standard of my approach, sort of dictating how I'm supposed to engage, how I'm like, and I feel like there's a world of believers that they're trying to do what's right, but in that process, they've actually sort of like given up their sort of lawful authority as believers, as the body of Christ in the world. And I feel like some of the negative posts that like people that I've seen where they're sort of like, they're trying to like send a rebuke to Christians that are just going along with things, or that sort of.
Right.
I think some of them actually have, like, the concern is that believers are sort of just letting the world dictate the message. You know what I'm saying? Letting the media sort of dictate the message, letting the government sort of dictate the message. And there's a fine line between being submissive and submitting to authority, and sort of like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not engaging the way we're meant to as believers.
Right. I think I don't want to go down the road where we start censoring people's thoughts and ideas.
Yeah.
I think that for me, it's like I'm fine with disagreeing and agreeing and arguing and being on different pages. I'm not okay with the tone in which we do it sometimes.
Yep.
And I think so sometimes it's like right now, I don't care if we all agree or disagree. Like that to me, I don't care. I care that everyone has the expectation that everyone is supposed to agree with me. And so if you don't agree with me, the more aggressive and forceful I'm going to get about my opinion.
Yeah.
And I'm actually going to withhold honor and loving, kind words towards you. I'm going to demean your intelligence if you don't agree with me. Like, it's when we start going into that camp where I'm like, well, now we're just getting sinful. Like, now we're just getting, like, this is where it's getting toxic.
Yeah.
And it's like, let's disagree, fine. Like, like, you think Bill Gates is like the Antichrist? That's fine. Totally fine. You can hate Bill Gates.
Bro, the
right?
chip.
Yeah, and like you can be concerned about the chip, you can be concerned about some end time prophecy. That's all fine.
Yeah.
Some of you can just be like, just agree with the government, stay home. I don't care.
Yeah.
Just like, don't question people's intelligence in the process.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's that road. It's like, have all the thoughts and ideas you want, but we need to also maintain peace.
Yeah.
And the way we do that is by carrying the nature of God into conversations. And I always ask myself the question, would God agree with me on my statement about that person?
Yeah.
And if I don't think he agrees with me, then I will withhold my own opinions.
Yeah. You're talking about like about an individual or about
Yeah. Like if I'm going like, you are such a dummy. Like, I don't think God agrees with me. I'm going to withhold that opinion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or if he does, he's withholding his opinion.
yeah. He will just say it very different.
Like, there could be a dummy. Dummy A, we'll call him.
Okay.
Or her. Equal opportunity. And God looks at this person and thinks to himself, that is dumb. But when that person goes to him in prayer, is that the first thing that comes out of his mouth? Is his opinions on the quality of life that you've been living? Any person that follows Jesus knows that when you come to Jesus in prayer honestly, rarely does the first thing that come out of his mouth is his opinions about like how bad you're doing. Right?
Yeah.
It's like he'll get there, but you see it in the prodigal son. The moment the son comes back, the first priority of the father is to kiss him and to restore his sense of identity and love and affection, establish that connection. And then I'm sure the process that they walked out together. So I actually think that is profound, that we actually value people over whatever else we could possibly value.
Yeah.
And that even our tone reflects that. I remember hearing a teaching on Mike Bickle. I wish I could remember what was going on, but there was a really divisive moment happening in the church, and a lot of Christians with a lot of opinions. And Mike Bickle just called out, it was one of those issues where I wish I could remember it, where a lot of what the church was saying was truth, but the tone of how the church was saying it was not love.
Yeah.
And I just think there's power in us maybe taking as a little humble pie of take a little self-assessment of where you've been at in your life, and maybe not in a shame way, but in a way that provokes worship, how not together we are.
Yeah.
And what does God do when we actually encounter him? Because surely he's right about whatever we could have opinions on. And still, the priorities when we come to that point of relational contact, if God had a Facebook, the point where we'd have contact on social media, I think it's seen in all of our lives in spite of our shortcomings. And I think if we could all have that same sense of priority and value for one another, it would make the conversations about issues that are divisive a lot more holy, I think, and a lot more productive.
We talk about it when we talk about culture of honor or keep your love on, things like that, where it's there's a separation between someone's identity and their behavior.
Yeah.
But Jesus' example and his ability to relate to people at a deep level while maintaining that was so profound. I mean, so much to the point where he's being accused, right? Being a friend of sinners, a drunkard, and a glutton. You know what I mean? Just because he has friends, he's associated, he's around people that that he's disagreeing with their life choices and their opinions, and that he's going to be sitting there in a conversation where someone's spouting off an opinion about something, and his ability to sit there and love the person so well that it opens their heart up to a change, to a shift in their perspective, to repentance, if that's what's needed.
He had the security of knowing he was right about everything.
Yeah.
We actually don't have that. We might be wrong.
Yeah.
In our opinions about people. And we think that we should actually really be intense about sharing our opinions about people. He had the security of knowing he was absolutely unequivocally right.
And he could still maintain that.
His priorities caused him to not do that.
Yeah.
I think the best takeaway from this, and the word you had, was we have an opportunity to discover God in a way that we've never discovered him before. We have a way of fortifying our beliefs in who God is like never before.
Yeah.
And if we can emerge out of the season knowing he's faithful, he's a provider, he's a healer, it's something that we'll never be shaken and walk away from.
Yeah.
I think that's number one. This is a season of revelation, not a drought.
Yeah.
I also think that we have to consider the fact that not only do we need to fortify our beliefs, but we need to carry a greater responsibility that we represent his nature to the world.
So good.
And what is the message the world is going to come out of the season about God with?
Yeah.
Is this going to be an opportunity for the gospel? Or is it going to be, or is there going to be a black eye on the church, and equally a black eye on the face of God because of the way the church represented him in this season?
Yeah.
I think that sternly we need to know we can do a better job.
Yeah.
Christ in me is the hope that God's going to receive glory, and what measures am I taking to reveal him so that the world is not confused?
Dude, that is so good. Honestly, that. All right, that is
bye.
It. I think we're done. Well, that just wraps it up. I mean, that is everything there. My biggest concern is that, what you're saying right there, when this ends, what is our relationship with people going to look like?
Yeah.
Right.
We have these, you know what I mean? That element of what you just said right there is that's perfect.
Yeah. I want God to be proud of me on the other side of this.
Yeah.
I want him to be famous.
Yeah.
On the other side of this.
So good.
Yeah. I'll personally, we're all making statements. I gotta make mine.
What do you want, man?
No, actually, as soon as you said that, my thought is I want to be closer to him at the end of this.
Yeah.
I don't want this to create distance between me and God.
Amen.
My choices in the midst of isolation, in the midst of staying at home, in the midst of the potential contention in your home with close proximity with family members and kids, and I don't want this to be a separator. I don't want this to be a distance creator in my relationship with God. I want I want to just be close to him on the other side of this.
Yeah. That's good.
So
Yes.
dude, that's it. Coffee and Conversations.
Special guest number 1.
Thank you, Tim. You guys have a wonderful week. and we'll catch you next time.
Love you guys.